Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to London Studios. I'm your host Irfan Hashmi and we have with us Najam Sethi Show.
Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone.
Sethi Sey, the main issue today is IK interaction at USIP in Washington. His speech was 25 minutes long and the interaction on the question answer session was over an hour. I imagine you have watched and listened every word he said there.
Yes, absolutely, from beginning to end, and I took 2 pages of notes. So I'm very familiar with what happened there.
Let's start with that. Question is, as someone who is watching that the whole thing, why not a single question asked from the audience? Why there was, I call that a purchase system on cards, what was written there, and there was an audience online. And I suppose and I believe that there should be some follow-up questions as well.
No, I think there are 2 ways of handling this issue at institutes such as this, because I myself have spoken there on at least 1 occasion. And what happens is that the speaker is first introduced by the president of the institute.
Right.
In this case, it was Nancy Lindbergh. And then the speaker is invited to talk on the subject for about 15 to 30 minutes maximum. And then what happens is that the president kicks off with 1 or 2 questions. And then there are questions from the audience. And the audience is told not to give speeches, but to focus on asking questions. That is the normal procedure. Sometimes there are also written questions, which the president then puts forward. But there is always an interaction with the people in the hall. On this occasion, there was none. I think there were basically 2 reasons for that. First of all, this was a distinguished visitor. It wasn't just anyone, an academic or even a minister. This was the Prime Minister of Pakistan, so a certain protocol had to be followed.
Right.
And the protocol was this, that he should not be harassed. People should ask questions, not give speeches. And there are always emotional and passionate people sitting in the audience who tend to stand up and instead of asking a question, will ask either a very loaded political question, which could be insulting sometimes, or may end up giving speeches, and it's very difficult to tell them to stop and what is your question.
Right.
And then there's a lot of repetition also, because people just know that the event is being televised, so they want to stand up and appear to be on television. So I think for the sake of form, the format was that, okay, whoever has any questions, send them to the president, and the president will do a Q&A with the Prime Minister, and that's exactly what happened. I see nothing wrong with that. The question that some people have been asking me is this: why did Nancy not have follow-up questions? Meaning, she asked a question, he gave an answer. If the answer was not satisfactory, and a lot of people didn't find many answers satisfactory, perhaps there should have been a follow-up question, meaning that he should have been grilled a little bit.
Or supplement questions.
Supplementaries where either if his statement was not correct or confusing, it should have brought in more enlightenment.
Right.
Now that didn't happen. There were no, in a sense, supplementaries or follow-up questions. Although I dare say that on the media, to be fair, there were at least 6 or 7 questions which Nancy asked. So she didn't let go, because a lot of people were concerned about what is happening about the media. And he did talk at length. Although he rambled a bit, he did talk about his views about what's happening in Pakistan, which we'll discuss today.
Definitely.
So on the whole, I don't really have any issues with the format, and I think it was handled very well by Nancy. And I must tell you something. Regardless of whether one agrees or doesn't agree with what Imran Khan said, I was impressed by 2 things. He was calm, he was collected, he was not emotional, he was not rhetorical in the sense of being, it wasn't as though he was lecturing anyone, and he maintained his dignity throughout that event. I dare say he did much the same thing even in his press conference with Donald Trump. So all in all, he conducted himself with the sort of dignity that a Prime Minister needs to demonstrate. And his answers, as I said, you may agree or don't not agree with him, but he was articulate, he was focused, and he was not emotional, which is good. Diplomats need to be poker-faced, they need to make their point and need to move on. And except, as I said on the media, where he rambled a bit, which I suppose is understandable because he's a little guilty there, and he was fibbing, which we'll discuss. I was on the whole impressed by his performance.
You seems impressed by Prime Minister Imran Khan, and he seems impressed by Donald Trump, as he said. Let's hear what Imran Khan is saying about Trump first.
And I have to say that it was one of the most pleasant surprise, not just for me, for my delegation. The way, the hospitality, the way he, straightforward, charming way he treated us, so we were all blown over. We loved the meeting with the president yesterday.
What he meant by that, he seemed
Yeah,
impressed.
he said I was bowled over. Now, bowled over by Donald Trump, by the president. Bowled over by Trump means I was completely overwhelmed. When you bowl somebody out, all the stumps go flying, and that means that you weren't expecting this, and you've been completely overwhelmed by this. Now, I mean, meeting the president of the United States is, in any case, for a third world country leader, meeting the president, or POTUS as they call him, president of the US, is an overwhelming event. Make no mistake about it. This is the leader of the most powerful nation in history.
Yeah.
And so therefore it is bound to be overwhelming. Bowled over adds another dimension to it. It's as though that I was speechless. I was stunned. Now, what exactly was it about Donald Trump's behavior and attitude towards Imran Khan that bowled him over? My sense is he was talking about how Trump can be very direct. Donald Trump is not given to diplomatic niceties. Donald Trump is given to abrupt statements, sweeping statements, contradictory statements, a show of aggression, a show of effusiveness, show of warmth, all in one sitting. And so that's the sort of thing that can bowl you over, because he's a very strong personality, very dominating personality. For example, when he's talking, if somebody interrupts him, he doesn't like being interrupted, and he tells people off. And so my sense is that if you saw the press conference before their luncheon meeting the earlier day, on the 22nd, you notice Imran Khan was basically silent during that entire press conference. Donald Trump was the man who was doing all the talking. And I think Imran Khan probably had maximum, if it was a 30-minute press conference, Prime Minister Imran Khan spoke for less than 5 minutes. Donald Trump was doing most of the talking. And a lot of it had nothing to do with the US-Pak. He went on about his secretary, Mueller, and so on and so forth. And therefore, and nobody had the courage to stop him, that look, hey, we were talking about something else and why, and so on. So, bowled over, it's interesting. I wonder what press impression is of Imran Khan. Would he say that he was bowled over by Imran Khan? He hasn't said that. But I do recall something that President Trump said, and it would be well worth our while to recall how President Trump behaves. You remember when Trump became president, there was a conversation between Nawaz Sharif and President Trump?
Yes.
And you know what President Trump said to Nawaz Sharif in their first conversation, when Nawaz called him to congratulate him on becoming the president of the United States? Nawaz was already Prime Minister of Pakistan. And he said, Pakistan is a fantastic country, Pakistanis are fantastic. He said all that, and then he turned around to Nawaz and said, yeah, you are a tremendous guy. And you're doing great things for your country. You're a tremendous guy and you're doing great things for your country. You'll remember that the Pakistanis was bowled over by Trump. And they were so bowled over by Trump that they decided to release the transcript of that conversation, which was a private conversation as such. The State Department had not released the transcript.
Yeah.
So the Pakistani Foreign Office was so bowled over by Trump that they released that conversation. And then there was some toing and froing about who said what and so on and so forth. And then the Pakistanis backed off a little bit and said, oh yeah, we shouldn't have done that and so on. So President Trump is the same President Trump who bowled over a lot of generals in Pakistan when he accused Pakistan of having taken American money and not done anything to help America in the war in Afghanistan and so on and so forth. The president has been very critical. And it's the same president who's now, as they say, singing praises of the new government and the new military leadership, and exhorting them to work together with America, and hoping that this is going to be a great new relationship. I might just add before I finish this subject that he said exactly the same thing to Nawaz Sharif, that he looked forward to a great personal relationship, quote unquote, I'm using his words, with Nawaz Sharif, personal relationship, and also an era of reset in Pakistan-US relations. Of course, no such thing happened. There was no personal relationship established and there was no reset. He's saying the same things to Imran Khan today.
Sir, let's start what he said about the domestic politics, and then we'll take you to the international corridors where he said about something about Afghanistan, about Iran, and obviously Pakistan-US relationship. When it comes to the Pakistan economy, he said that we have stabilized economy. What Imran Khan is saying about the economy of Pakistan, and I'll take your opinion on that.
Finally, I can say right now, after 10 months, we have finally stabilized the economy, and we feel now that we are now, after stabilizing the economy, we feel that we can now move ahead and start our reforms. I would like to have a relationship, a mutual trust, as equals, of friendship. Aid has been one of the biggest curses for my country. Never again should we ever have that humiliating phase. I can tell you as a Pakistani, never did I feel more humiliated when Osama bin Laden was taken out in Pakistan by the US troops. Never did I feel more humiliated, because here was a country which was supposed to be an ally, and our ally did not trust us. When I went on my first trip to Saudi Arabia, I came back, what have you got from there? As if I'd gone there to beg for money.
We will not look towards any foreign financial assistance or any aid. What do you make of that?
Yes, you know, he said that he didn't like dependency, and he criticized Pakistan's previous regimes without naming them for having taken a lot of foreign assistance and economic aid and become dependent on foreign sources and not having lived within our means. And he also said that he felt that after about a year's travails, he had stabilized the Pakistan economy now. Now, let me take both of these issues one by one. Stabilize the economy, I don't think he stabilized the economy at all. I think that is the purpose of the IMF program, which is just starting. And it will be a 3-year program. And if at the end of 3 years, he has stabilized the economy, then he can make such a statement. He cannot make this statement at the outset of a program that is aimed at stabilization, which is the 3, over which the IMF is giving him close to $6 billion, and the Saudis and the UAE and China are between them giving nearly $8 or $9 billion. So we have a stabilization program of close to $15 billion in loans, no grants. So there's no question that the economy has stabilized. What has happened is that we are on the verge of a whole new range of economic reforms, which, if successful, will lead to a stabilization of the economy. So it is wrong to say that he has stabilized the economy. The economy is extremely insecure and unstable right now. You see what is happening to the stock market, it's fallen flat. You see what's happening to consumer demand, it's fallen flat. You see what's happening to inflation, it's gone up. You see what's happening to the fiscal deficit. You know, you have a huge target in front of you for this year, and the signs are not looking good because people are still not ready to pay taxes, and you've imposed them across a whole range of things. And then there are political protests taking place about the so-called economic reforms. So it's not true to say that the economy has stabilized. The economy is in dire straits. It is unstable, insecure, and right now at rock bottom.
Right.
So that's the first misleading statement. The second statement is about dependency. Now, he's absolutely right when he says that nations should not be dependent on other nations, especially for their well-being, because then that leads to a sacrifice on other issues, sometimes on national security issues, on national interest issues. And debt is never a good thing unless it's used productively. But debt should not lead to more debt. Now, in principle, he's right. But the thing is that the debt that Pakistan has piled up, a lot of it has to do with our military expenditures. It has not as much to do with development expenditures. And a lot of the debt that has come our way from, say, the United States and other nations has come during periods of military. Pakistan's economic growth has been the highest during Ayub Khan's reign, during Zia's rule, and then during Musharraf's rule. Yet during each time, the United States and international donors poured in a lot of money into the Pakistan economy. because they were doing a one-window operation with military dictators, and military dictators were doing their bidding, whether it was becoming part of CENTO, SEATO, Baghdad Pact, etc., against the Soviet Union, whether it was fighting the American war against the Soviet Union during Zia's time in Afghanistan, or indeed, as Imran now says, that America wanted us to fight America's war in Afghanistan during the Musharraf years as well, and that we made a mistake, we should not have done that. So during each time, dependency, the debt profile has gone up because we've received a lot of money in one form or another from the United States and other donors. And that has made us comfortable. We haven't lived within our means. So I wish he'd explained it at some length, but he hasn't, but I'm explaining it now. That yes, he's right, we should not be dependent. Yes, he's right, we should raise our own taxes. Yes, he's right, our ruling classes have to cough up more money. Yes, he's right that we shouldn't fight other people's wars. And to that extent, I agree with him.
Sethi Sahib, there was another question asked to Prime Minister Imran Khan about the jihadis' presence in Pakistan, to which he answered that yes, there are actually 30 to 40,000 members of the groups operating in Pakistan. But what Imran Khan has done to eliminate them, to disarm them, and he said that we have taken over them.
Yes, well, the question was that what are you doing to control these jihadis, because there's a lot of pressure from the Americans who call them terrorists because they've been used in Kashmir. You know, that's also part of the FATF agenda, to control these quote-unquote terrorists. These jihadi groups have been declared terrorists by the United Nations and by the United States and by India and the global community. So his answer was, yes, it's true that in the past these groups were supported and nurtured by the organs of the security state. He then went on to admit that yes, there are still 30 to 40,000 of them in Pakistan. But then he gave the reassurance that by that he meant the government and the security organization of the state, have taken over them. Those were his words. But what he really meant was, okay, we have disarmed them, we are now controlling them, and we will not allow them to create acts of terrorism either inside the country or outside the country. That is what he was trying to say. The surprising thing in this admission was the fact that he said there are 30 to 40,000 of them. That's the first time this figure has ever been given, which of course is why you're asking this question and why a lot of people said 30 to 40,000. He admits that there were so many. Well, actually he's being quite realistic and quite frank, which is why this problem will not go away overnight. Now, over a whole 2 or 3 decades, we've created these jihadi groups. From the 90s onwards, we created these groups to further our aims and objectives in Kashmir and then subsequently in Afghanistan. So, there is not one group. There was a time when there were 7, 8, 9, 10 of these groups. Each group was trained and infiltrated and so on and so forth. In the last elections, the government, Nawaz Sharif's government, of the security agencies, tried to control them, but failed. Eventually, the security agencies said, we cannot control them, but we can divert them. Instead of now saying, okay, you should go and foment trouble and acts of terrorism across the border, this border or that border, they said to reorient them. And so therefore, they were nominated to stand for elections. And you know, the election results show that these parties, these jihadi groups, were able to obtain 5 to 6 to 7,000 votes in most constituencies, or at least in a large chunk of constituencies. Right. Now, if you add those votes, you will find out that there were at least 30 to 40,000 votes, perhaps even more, maybe up to 100,000 votes were cast, or even more for this group. And therefore, for him to say that there are people like this who believe in jihad and who at one time or another have participated in it is probably true. But the point at stake is not whether there are supporters of jihad or indeed these organizations where you have active and non-active members, but that they will not be allowed to use their arms anymore. They will be disbanded. So that was the point that Imran was trying to make. My sense is that this is work in progress. It is incorrect to say that we have taken control of them and we have disarmed them. Look, we know Labaik suddenly appeared from nowhere. And there was a time when Labaik was destabilizing the Imran Khan regime, the Nawaz Sharif regime, and Imran Khan was supporting them and saying, no, it's okay. They held a dharna and all the rest of it. Remember, at a time when there was an attempt to destabilize Nawaz Sharif's government. And they actually got the head of one of the ministers, the so-called education minister. He had to resign because of Labaik. So this is one of those groups. Then the others are the groups, Hafiz Saeed group and the Masood Azhar group and a lot of other small groups. And so therefore this is work in progress. And I think what so far the Pakistanis have been unable to convince the Americans and the Indians and the international community is that this is not going to end overnight. We are working to put an end to all this, but it will take time. And during this time, acts will take place. That doesn't mean we have sanctioned them. It means that sometimes it's even beyond our control, because if you start a military crackdown on these groups, there will be a revolt. And when these groups are Islamist groups, they have a small base in the country. They collect millions and millions and tens of millions of rupees every year during Eid. People give them money for their charities. They also support charities. They were very active during the earthquake relief and so on and so forth. So they have a base in the country. And so we have not been able to explain to the international community that we can try and put a stop to them, but to dismantle them and to eliminate them completely overnight is not going to be possible. And by the way, this is one of the things on which we are stuck with FATF. FATF wants us to act, do more to finish these groups off. But it's not so easy to finish them off overnight. What you can do is make sure that they don't get up to mischief and to slowly reorient them, which is what the military establishment now wants to do. Here's the problem. They are unable to convince the international community that they are serious about this. When Hafiz Saeed goes about saying things, when Masood Azhar goes around saying things and taking responsibility for acts of terrorism, then it shows that you don't have control over them. Then it shows that perhaps you're fibbing, perhaps there's a double game being played here. And I think that's what he was trying to explain. He was unable to explain that properly, maybe shortage of time, but I think that's where part of the problem lies.
Right. We'll take a short break, and after the break we have more questions for Sethi Sahab. Welcome back. Sethi Sahab, there was another question asked to Prime Minister Imran Khan about the media freedom there. And this question is very close to my heart as well. And what he was saying about the free media, let's hear that.
Do you know, Nancy, I am probably one of the biggest beneficiaries of the media. You will not find a media like that. I mean, is not just free, but sometimes out of control. What we need is to control the media, and not through the government, but through a media watchdog. I mean, who would do that? First, you're fighting in the biggest economic crisis in your history. Second, you have media coming up with this false news about causing a run on the rupee or the finance minister's change and so on. But there are 70 channels or 80 channels in Pakistan. Only 3 channels reported that they were having some problem, despite the official media sort of not giving us that sort of coverage. But it was the social media and the young people who came out and made us defeat the 2 established parties. Social media has actually democratized the whole world.
Heard what he's saying.
Yes, I've heard what he says. There's a contradiction in what he says. First, he says that he is the biggest beneficiary of a free media. Turns around and in the same breath says that we now want to control the media. Now, the word control is censorship. The idea of controlling an independent institution is a contradiction in terms. But going further, he says, not by the government, but by a watchdog. Now, on the face of it, this looks perfectly reasonable.
Right.
Every country has watchdogs where media complaints against the media and media's complaints against harassment are taken. And these are watchdogs. They are recommendatory bodies, advisory bodies. These are bodies not given powers to punish. Those powers remain with the laws and the courts. Now, what he has in mind when he says not the government, he's talking about PEMRA. It's the Electronic Media Authority that, quote unquote, is supposed to regulate the electronic media.
Right.
Okay. Now, and he's making the huge leap of faith when he says that it's what he implies that it's not the government but PEMRA that is going to control them. What he meant was regulate them, but he used the word control because that is what is at the back of his mind, control.
And that's what they're doing.
And what is PEMRA? PEMRA is not an independent body. PEMRA is a stooge of this particular government and has been such a stooge of previous governments as well. The whole process of the appointment of officials in PEMRA is rigged.
Right.
And now more than ever before, PEMRA is a tool to put pressure on the media. And I dare say, sooner or later, by the way, many of PEMRA's orders are being challenged in the courts, and I dare say many more will be challenged. And the government is dead set on strengthening PEMRA, which is what he's talking about over here, that they want to strengthen PEMRA. They want to strengthen the organizations that control the media. So it's a contradiction in terms. He has very little shall we say, scope in his own mind to enlarge the media horizon. He goes on to make many outlandish statements subsequently about how he thinks the media has been very critical of him, quite forgetting that when he was in opposition, the same media was lauding him to the skies. By the way, this is not a disease that is peculiar to Imran Khan. This is a disease that we find in all political leaders. When they're in opposition, they love the media because the media gives them space, highlights their utterances and allegations against their opponents.
Right.
And when they come into government, the media then begins to target them. Because no media in the world can survive by lauding the government, because governments make mistakes, they're public servants, they're supposed to be held accountable. They're not supposed to be praised. By definition, there's an adversarial relationship between a free media and an elected government. This is built into the whole notion of a free media as the fourth pillar of the state. It is not a pillar of the government, it is a pillar of the state. It's a pillar that holds government and public servants accountable. So therefore, Imran Khan is wrong to say that he wants to control the media. And I will just say this, that more than any government in the past, Imran Khan's government has managed successfully to gag the media. Forget about controlling it, to gag the media. As we speak, today there was a press conference by Mariam Nawaz Sharif, and it was completely blacked out by the media. Her rallies are being blacked out, the opposition's statements are being blacked out. PEMRA is now issuing notices saying that you cannot highlight certain statements by opposition leaders, and Imran Khan is going around everywhere on public platforms and in local speeches saying the media has no business carrying interviews of people who are either behind bars for corruption or against whom there are allegations of corruption or wrongdoing, which is, by the way, against the principles of the media. The media will highlight anyone's point of view if it thinks it's in the public interest. If tomorrow Imran Khan accuses me of something,
right,
and I want to respond to it, I have not been convicted of it, and you are stopped from interviewing me and saying, Imran Khan has accused you of doing this, what is your defense? If I'm not allowed to present my defense on the same platform in which I'm accused, then where is the free media? Where is justice? Where is insaf? So therefore, he is wrong when he says he wants to control the media. The media should be regulated. There should be regulatory bodies. These should be genuinely independent bodies of independent, self-respecting and respected individuals, where if there are any excesses carried out by the media, which are not addressable by the laws of the land. For example, if I make an outlandish statement against you, you have the right to take me to court on defamation.
Exactly.
But you don't go to PEMRA to issue me a defamation notice. You don't go to PEMRA to say, shut me up, take this channel off air. You don't do that. So I think Imran Khan would like to really silence us all. May say so he has succeeded, along with the help of other forces, to silence 99% of the media. Occasionally, some of us speak out, we are taken off air.
And having said that, how long this show will go on like this?
This show will go on and on until Imran Khan is around, or until he realizes that you can't do this, or until we in the media stand up and refuse to be cowed down. But if we keep silent because he's asking us to be silent or threatening us to be silent, then of course it will go on until one day there will be an eruption. Look, you cannot, in a democracy, even in a limited democracy that he's trying to create, he's trying to take away democratic freedoms. Sooner or later, either the international community or the international media or social media, the truth will come out. And when the truth comes out, I mean, Mariam's press conference, they didn't show it, but she's showing it live on Facebook. So it's going to be multiplied 100 times over. And eventually the very social media that he says brought him to power is the same social media that will bring him down.
And the people are talking about that on the social media as well. So we move to another question about Imran Khan spoke about the judiciary too. The political parties are blackmailing the judiciary in Pakistan. Actually, he was talking about Judge Arshad Malik's video in there. Do you think that was a right platform? Before you give your comment on that, let's hear what he said about that.
I was not fighting political parties. I felt I was fighting a mafia. And the Supreme Court of Pakistan, actually, when there was this famous court case where the Prime Minister was dismissed, actually called the ruling party a Sicilian mafia. There's a judge who convicted the previous Prime Minister. Now this judge, the opposition brought out a video blackmailing him about him with some compromising video with some woman. They brought this up. This happens in Italian mafias. It doesn't happen in democracies.
Sethi Sir, your take on that?
Yes, I mean, he had no business giving a one-sided view. He's
on the international platform like that?
Well, actually, it is an international platform. I would have been happier if he discussed international issues and not give his one-sided views on domestic politics. But part of the audience was PTI audience, and a lot of people support him. And so they wanted to hear what he had to say, so he was addressing them. It's okay, I suppose, as a politician. These people do these things. It's not good to wash your dirty linen in international public. But then, I mean, I don't, Benazir Bhutto never used to do it, Nawaz Sharif never used to do it. Imran Khan does it, so there it is, that's his populist style. And a lot of people like it, his supporters like it, they want to hear these things. Now, moving on to what he exactly said. Look, I mean, he's giving the point of view, a particular point of view in which he's claiming. He's basically saying this is what the judge said, and he's endorsing what the judge said. And the judge has, of course, given an affidavit, Arshad Malik, in which he said that I was being blackmailed by the Sharifs and their friends. And that is how I explain my behavior. As you know, this case is already with the Islamabad High Court, which is overseeing it. The judge has been suspended. There is not much weight can be attached to his affidavit. Imran Khan had no business giving this one-sided view on such a platform. And I think that was one of the reasons why no questions were allowed. I dare say once he'd made this statement, if somebody from the floor had stood up and said, that's not true, that is not the correct position, he would have been embarrassed.
And
so that is, now you understand why the event was controlled.
Yes.
It was to give him an opportunity to say whatever he wants to say. And so he was wrong to do that, but then he said it, and as I said, a lot of people must have liked it. The same people on social media who want to believe certain things and think that the PTI can never be wrong.
Let's take a short break, and after the break we have more questions for Sethi Sir. Welcome back. Sethi Sir, now let's move to the international relations. There are three questions. One is about Afghanistan, what Imran Khan said in that interaction, and then obviously about Iran as well, and then obviously the Pakistan-US relationship future. Let's start with Afghanistan. He said that he will meet Taliban and press upon them to talk Afghan government, right? And in September, he's hoping that there will be a breakthrough.
Yes, I mean, it's a very
And before you give your comment, and he also said that not all the neighbors want peace in Afghanistan.
Excellent. These are the three core issues that he talked about. I agree with you. He said that until now, he had not personally met the Taliban leadership. And he's given an assurance that in the near future, he's hoping to have a meeting with the Taliban directly. The Pakistani authorities are indirectly in touch with them. But now he's saying, I will talk to the Taliban leadership directly. This is very important. If it comes about, it will be a major development, make no mistake about it. Number two, he said that he hopes to convince them to start talking to the Afghan government. I think this is going to be the core issue for him. They may meet him, but whether he'll be able to convince them to start talking to the Afghan government, or whether they will dilly-dally and drag their feet like they've been doing so far, and whether it will fall quite short of what the United States expects. And third, he said that he expects that there will be a ceasefire. He didn't exactly use the word ceasefire. He said there will be a settlement soon. And so he's optimistic. However, he was being very realistic. And on the one hand, he was saying that this is what we're going to try and do. On the other hand, and also hoping that they'll get through. On the other hand, he also made the other statement that not everybody in the region wants peace in Afghanistan. And I think that is the core issue. Whether he meets the Taliban or not, or whether the Taliban agree to a temporary ceasefire or some sort of compromise for the time being, that is a different matter. But not everybody wants peace. Now, who is it who doesn't want peace in Afghanistan? I think, for one, there are so many different interests in Afghanistan. The Ghani government will never relinquish more than a small slice of action to the Taliban. The Ghani and his friends and his supporters will want to stay entrenched. Now, the Taliban will never accept that. So, to that extent, Ghani will say, fine, let's carry on as before. Similarly, if the Taliban's demands are not met, the Taliban will say, let's not have peace. So, that's the one problem here. The second is the people who originally used to represent the Northern Alliance, the Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras, all who are anti-Taliban.
Right.
Because the Taliban are predominantly a Pashtun group. They may not be happy with any power sharing arrangement that Ghani, who's a Pashtun, enters into with another Pashtun group. Because the last thing they want is a fully Pashtun dominated Afghanistan. Now, the other groups are not happy with that. So, they will not want that, including the Afghan intelligence agencies, which are predominantly run by the Tajiks and Uzbeks. That was the compromise, the Faustian bargain that Ghani had to make in order to survive in office. They will not like an arrangement whereby they are knocked out and the Taliban come back to power. So, then there's Iran. Iran also has got huge interests in Afghanistan. The Russians have huge interests in Afghanistan. If the Taliban come to power in a full-fledged manner, or if a deal is struck whereby Russian interests, which have to do with the interests of those ex-Russia, Soviet Union states, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and so on, some of these groups based in Afghanistan who are affiliated with the Taliban are fomenting trouble in those republics.
Right.
And they are seen as terrorists. So, there are these issues which have to be all overcome. And I think he was right to draw attention to the fact that not everybody wants the sort of peace that America wants, or indeed the sort of peace that Pakistan wants. Pakistan wants a stable, peaceful Afghanistan that is friendly towards Pakistan. India doesn't want such a regime that is friendly towards Pakistan and unfriendly towards India. The Americans want a regime that allows them to get out without leaving a mess in its wake, because then it will be seen to be a lost war. So, there are all these lapping and overlapping concerns. And on top of it, the Taliban know that Donald Trump wants to get out of Afghanistan. They know they've fought for 19 years. They've not lost. They've kept slowly winning the game, the long war, even though they may have lost a few battles, but they've been winning the long war. It's going to be a long haul. So, he's saying we are ready to cooperate, but it won't be easy. That's what he's saying. And I think in that sense, he's made a realistic assessment.
Sir, the another question is about Iran. When there was interaction was taking place, he said that we don't have a good relationship with Iran, but we have a decent relationship with Iran.
Yeah, but that's not the core issue. The core issue that he talked about was that in the event of a conflict between the United States and Saudi alliance against Iran, the whole region will be destabilized. And he said not just Pakistan, he said he was very worried.
Right.
And he said that this will have very serious consequences. And in a sense, he said this will be unlike the consequences of American intervention in Iraq, unlike the consequences of the American intervention in Syria. He said this will have far-reaching consequences. And he's absolutely right. Pakistan is a sizable Shia population. At least we don't really know the numbers, but it's said that over 25% of
Right.
people in Pakistan are Shia Muslims. And Iran is a very aggressive power. It's not likely to be cowed down. Iran has a reach. It can reach far across its own borders. He didn't spell it out, but he expressed his deep worry about what would happen to the region, what would happen to global politics, what would happen to the export of new terrorism. And he felt that America would forget about Iraq and Syria in terms of the consequences of an attack on Iran. It's not just attacking Iran and trying to subdue it. You can never take over Iran, number one. You cannot intimidate a revolutionary regime. Iran has been an empire in the past, unlike other countries. And the Shias are very passionate. They're very good fighters. And so he was absolutely right to draw attention to that. And it was a word of warning to the United States, to the international community, not to make that mistake, either at the behest of the Israelis or the Saudis. Of course, he was careful not to name the Saudis, because we now have a very difficult balancing act to play. But he was basically saying, look, we have a decent relationship, we may not have a good relationship, but in your own interest and in everybody's interest, don't go and do something in Iran that will make Syria and Iraq look like, you know, children's games. And he was absolutely right. And I applaud him for making this point.
Right. We have last 2 minutes, and I really want you to quickly comment on the Pakistan-US relationship in the future.
Yes, well, obviously he's very keen. He's been emphasizing 2 or 3 words. He said, let's rebuild trust. He said, we didn't trust you, you didn't trust us. You wanted us to fight your war. We fought your war, but we did it half-heartedly because it wasn't our war. And then we ended up paying a huge price for it. That was his argument. He says, in the future, we won't lie to you. I will tell you what it is. And you have to understand that we can't do everything you ask us to do, because it may not be in our own interest. It could create problems for us, as in the past. But he was trying to reassure the Americans that, you know, we can reset this relationship, but you've got to be realistic too. My sense is that this is what our governments and our military have been saying to the Americans in the past. I don't know the extent to which he was able to persuade Donald Trump the Pakistani point of view. He must have tried. My sense is Donald Trump is not ready to listen. Donald Trump wants Pakistan to do more. Donald Trump doesn't care about what happens to Pakistan, what is in Pakistan's interest or not. He wants to know what is in his own interest, what Pakistan will do in terms of his own interest. And he has an election coming up next year. My sense is if we are not able to do more as per the American demands, there will be a rift again between US and Pakistan. Remember, Nawaz Sharif and Donald Trump, everything fine, we look forward to a great thing, and in the end, abuse from America and foot dragging from Pakistan. Today, again, the same, we are going through the same thing. Will both sides be able to effect a new understanding? Will there be a new reset in relations? I have doubts.
Let's hope for the best, that this visit brings glory to the Pakistan greater cause. Viewers, that's all from now from London studios. Please do send us your feedback. Allah Hafiz.